Hello there. Good afternoon. I think it is for you, Natalie. Welcome along.
Hello, Philip. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Welcome. I'm great, thanks. It's morning for me, but raring to go. I am joined here by Natalie Peart, who we're going to find out all about what Natalie does. And today's session is about adapting to a new workplace in an English-speaking country. Before we get into all that, and welcome along if you're joining us. And if you are joining us, just let us know who you are, where you're joining us from. Love to say hi to you. Yes, before we get into all of that, Natalie, perhaps we can give a brief explanation of how we ended up where we are. So, can you tell everyone where you're from and where?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so my name's Natalie. I'm originally from the UK as well, but I live in Australia now. I guess how I ended up where I am. So I spent most of my 20s traveling different countries. I also worked in China, India, South Korea. And so I had to adapt to different countries. And then I came to Australia about 11 years ago. Um, I was an English teacher for 10 years, and I taught all of the Englishes. EAP, IELTS, Business English. But then I decided to transition my training skills and my teaching skills into working in employment services in the government. Um, After that, I had a baby. And then when I was on maternity leave, I decided to try and start my own business. And Jobspeak Academy, I will be honest, has grown and changed over the past couple of years, just based on me learning a lot about who I am, what I can do, who I want to help. And what I do now is I'm a career counselor and English communication coach for work. And I specialize in helping skilled migrants and international students to settle in Australia, so to settle in the English speaking country.
That's
Was
great,
that
great,
brief enough?
great story. I think so many things there. One is that I think English teaching pairs well with, you know, a plus, something else like career
Yeah.
coaching. And I
Yeah.
love that you've taken the time to find your place and then deliver something that only you can, basically. It's like you've got a first-hand experience of doing it, you've got this experience teaching. So I think that's cool. And kind of similar to my backstory as well. I
Hmm.
had a quarter life crisis and decided to leave the UK and started teaching English and found out that I really loved helping people.
Hmm.
The teaching English, I think, as you know, after a little while tends to go downhill because it's not necessarily a great career to be in.
No.
Um, and yeah, I paired that with writing because that's my passion. It's like I'm a writer and that's who I help now. So
Yeah. And
Uh, I
it's
think it
great as
takes
well.
time, doesn't it, to find your place, and then when you do, you're like, "Oh my god, why didn't I think of this all along?"
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. But yeah, writing, it's such a hard, I know myself, it's such a hard skill to teach as an English language teacher. You can follow the structure of an essay, but it's very hard to teach um, storytelling. It's very hard to teach, personality and voice within your writing. So it's a really essential, skill that you are teaching as well alongside English.
For sure, I think writing is something that most people have to do to sell themselves, to sell their services, to sell, to get jobs, to apply for jobs, to get good results in that job. You have to be
Yeah.
good at writing. Now, it's normal, and it drives me crazy. IELTS essays and English writing tasks, they're so fake. They're all
Yeah.
fake. Nobody writes a 250-word essay giving a pro and a con about, train stations in the town
Yeah.
centres. Like, nobody cares. Like, it's not
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Let's
I know
let's
that's another different topic. But yeah, IELTS. I get a lot of people asking me, do I need to take IELTS? And my answer is always yes. if you need to take it for migration reasons or if you need to take it for work reasons, but it's not real English. You are literally learning how to pass an
Pass
exam.
an
The
exam.
English that you learn within that is not real. That doesn't, you can have a 5.5 or a 7.5. It's not, doesn't matter in the real world what score you've got. It's just for a reason. So yeah, agree completely about IELTS and PTE.
True. I mean, I don't want to poo-poo these exams too much, and I do think, like IELTS and Cambridge, they do their best to try and have this assessment method, which is based on real, I would say, receptive skills are a bit more realistic, but then for production, for the, speaking about a picture, who has ever done that in their life? And giving a sort of monologue about a topic, people don't do that.
Yeah,
But yeah, for
sure.
the receptive skills, maybe it's a bit more realistic and a bit more lifelike, but let's not get off topic by
Yeah.
my IELTS. Great. Well, today's topic is adapting to a new workplace in an English speaking country. We're going to ask Natalie about the kind of work that she does with clients, how it helps, and get all the great tips that she's got for adapting to a new workplace. And if you have questions, just ask. Drop them in the chat, and we'll see if we can answer them along the way. If you're
Yeah.
watching this on replay, just drop your questions in the comments and we'll get back to you. So, the first question, Natalie, is let's say somebody is thinking of moving to a new country. Why is research a crucial part of that? And what should people do to research a new possible country?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll use Australia as an example because, that's what I work in. That's where I support people with. But it would be the same skills and the same examples no matter where you are going to move to. So research is important for career and for job search because the job market is different no matter where you go. So I focus on the Australian job market because it's different here than it is to the USA, and it's different here than it is to the UK because we have different recruitment standards, we have different, job market skills in demand, and there are a lot of different things to think about. So when you're doing research for a new country in terms of work and career and what jobs you can get, make sure that you are listening to people who are in that country. So a lot of the information on the internet in terms of, careers and resumes and things like that are US based blogs. And it doesn't mean that that is what it's going to be like in the country that you're moving to. So, one of the issues I have with clients or community members is that they will read a blog from the USA and they'll think that their resume has to be structured in a specific way, but it doesn't in Australia. It's different here than it is to the USA. So, if you're moving to Canada or the US or somewhere in Europe, look at the standards of that country. Find out what resume they expect. Is it a CV? Is it a resume? Do they require, a photo? Do they want specific things that they don't in your country? Because every country expects different things. The same with interviews. Find out what interview standards are in that country. What jobs are in demand. If you want to look on Seek is in Australia. I know that Monster is in the UK. And job search websites, look for the most jobs in your field. Look for jobs in the area that you want to move to. So you've got to really do your research and find out the specific answers to the questions in the area that you're moving to, and not just generic advice. Um, in terms of research for settling in and finding your community, which is super important, the government websites is usually a really good place to start. I know that in Australia they have different websites and council services and support services, so find out a Google search. There are far too many countries to give you some examples, but a very simple Google search, like support services for international students in Finland, or support services for international students in the UK, and find out who comes up, follow them on social media, and then even reach out to that specific organization or that specific person and ask them further advice, further links. So it's really important to get the information in the specific place that you're moving to, and not the American blogs that people seem to get through SEO on the internet.
Yeah, good point. I was going to say it's about going deeper than Google, isn't it? Because we often think, what's a quick answer? Or what's it like working in Australia? And you
100%.
Google it, and that's not going to get you the right answer. So go a
No.
couple of
And
levels deeper.
LinkedIn,
Good tip.
LinkedIn is really great. LinkedIn in Australia, LinkedIn is like the essential tool. Employers, recruiters look at LinkedIn, but it's not just for job search. Like, you can actually connect with people in your industry on LinkedIn before you even move to that new country, and learn from them, see what they post, connect with some, companies on LinkedIn and see what they post. Um, support services for whatever. It's LinkedIn and social media are also really, really helpful when you're doing your research.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of it is like passive research, because when you follow people, you just learn little by little. Like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, and take to a link where you can learn a lot more. So
Mhm,
that's a nice
absolutely.
tip. And so when people move to the new country, maybe they found a job, maybe they're looking for one. What is it that they struggle with? What is make it difficult to adapt sometimes?
Okay, so I guess that question would depend on where they're moving to. But I can talk about Australia and some similarities that might would have in other countries. Um, I would imagine it would be similar across the English speaking countries. Canada, New Zealand, USA, UK, Scotland, and Australia. In that, often employers really want you to have local experience. And in Australia, it's a really big thing. So a lot of the time, people would move here as an international student, so a student visa or as a working holiday visa, and they would do survival jobs, I call them, because I predominantly work with people who are, ready to start their professional career.
Hmm.
So they've gone through the stages of working in hospitality or cleaning, etc. Um, but when you are ready to start to find a job in your field, whether it be marketing, accounting, IT, whatever it might be, a problem is that they don't have the local experience that that the employer wants. So that's one hurdle. Is finding that local experience, is getting your foot in the door of your very first job. There are ways, for example, volunteer experience. If you know you're not going to be able to work in that field for some time, you can do some volunteer experience first, some freelance work. So being proactive when you move there first is a really good way that you can, be ready to find the professional job. Obviously, migration and visa is another big problem. There are work restrictions at times, so they have to be smart and work around the work restrictions as well. Um, Finding community, feeling a little bit isolated when they move here. So it's really important to find a community, whether it be within your nationality, whether it be within a local, migrant or expat group where you live, or whether it be an online English learning community. So yeah, finding people to speak to is definitely really helpful for mindset and resilience, because isolation and feeling lonely is a problem that migrants can encounter when they first move abroad. Um, I don't know if you've heard of this. Anyone's heard of it, you let me know. But migratory grief. Have you ever heard of that?
I don't think so, no.
So migratory grief, and I am not an expert in this. I learned this from a psychologist contact that I've
Mhm.
done a workshop with before. And so there's three stages of moving abroad. The first step is like grief. It's like, have I done the right thing? Maybe I should move back home. It's too hard. I can't do this. But if you go through that, you get to the middle step, and it's like acceptance. And it's hard, but I can do this. If I continue doing the hard things, that it will be worth it. I'm earning more money than I was at home. I'm meeting people. So it's accepting that it's hard, but it's okay. And then the third step of migratory grief is when everything kind of falls into place. It's when you have the job, you have the community, you have the language skills, you have the confidence. So it's actually a very well researched by mental health professionals stage of going through a grief process of when you move abroad. So you should look at migratory grief, and it will give you some idea of why you feel the way you do, and feel hopefully help you in that you understand that it's normal. It's not just you. You're not alone. And I think that's a really helpful thing as well.
Yeah, I want to touch on what you said about communities because I think that's quite a big one because communities have changed. We used to have local communities only, and you just know all your neighbors, all your family, and that was your life. And that's drastically changed. And now I think it's important to have both. Like we need a physical communities that we can dip in and out of, and that we can
Mhm.
meet up with people. And like you said, that can be based on so many different things. But
Yeah.
what's great is we can find them online and go in person, but also
Mhm.
online communities that you can't find in your locale, where you actually are. So I can't tell you how many communities I'm a part of, probably hundreds because of different
Yeah.
interests and local stuff and online stuff and writing and whatnot. But it's very important, I would say, communities to and you don't have to stick to one. It's like let's dip
Yeah.
in and out of lots and get support from where you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I agree. Community is really important. And as you say, there's lots of online options. But I always say as well is like you need to get out there. You do need to go and get out of your comfort zone a little bit and go to some face-to-face events and meetups. Because I do feel like a lot of people, me as well, to a certain degree, kind of hide behind our computer, like with networking for business, which I'm sure you can understand. It's like sometimes we just need to go outside and meet people, and that will help us, I think. So yeah, getting outside and meeting people is also really important as online communities.
100%. I have just recently started going to co-working once a week just because I'm like thinking exactly the same. Just being in the same physical space as people is kind of helpful,
Hmm.
as well as doing webinars and things like that.
Yeah.
Back to jobs applications, what kind of strategies can people use when moving abroad? Would you say it's a good idea to have like a career strategy, a series of steps that you go through? What's your take?
Absolutely. This is my jam. So a lot of the time, people they just come abroad and they just start clicking apply with the resume they have from home, and they just clicking apply, and then what happens is they are getting no response, and they start to feel frustrated, and they start to feel disappointed, and they start to feel rejected, and they start to blame their English, where a lot of the time it's really not your English. And what I would say is that from a resume, they don't know if you speak English or not. So if you are not getting to an interview, it's not your English, it's your strategy. It's the fact that you have not researched the local job market, the local expectations for an employer. So yes, a strategy is 100% important. Um, I would say to my clients or my community, you're actually in a career transition. It's not just about job search, it's about transitioning your career from overseas to a new country. So there's usually about, I forgot, 9 steps that you would go through. And that starts with researching your industry, researching your job market, researching yourself as well. So you need to know the skills and the strengths and the achievements that you have that fit in to your new job market, your new place of work. And then from there, you need a resume, you need LinkedIn, you need networking, you need job applications. But without the initial research and understanding who you are, what your options realistically are, where you should move, things like that, a resume is nothing. You need to understand everything about where you're going to be before you even consider applying for a job.
Yeah, great tips on making this list of having a strategy, going through steps. It's always good to break down a big goal, because we often think too big of like, oh, when I've got my new perfect job and I'm in my new place, I'll be happy. Don't think
Yeah.
things work like that, is it? So you got to break things down. Let's talk about English a little bit. What would you recommend in terms of English skills? How can migrants and people who are new to an English speaking country figure out what they need to improve, or if, and how can they do it?
Good question. So with my courses and my programs and even my um, consultations, I don't work on levels. So I know that obviously levels are really big in the English language industry, but the only thing I ask is that they feel confident. And I can usually pretty quickly assess that from a call. There's been a few times where I've said, nope, not yet, go and improve your English and then come back to me. And it's not because I'm horrible, it's because I don't want you to be in a situation that's going to hurt your confidence more. So, to answer your question, I think there is a perception that, and I'm being very careful about what I say, because there is a perception that you need perfect English to work in Australia, but it's actually not true. You don't need perfect English. With professional English, with workplace English, the objective is to be understood. So simple language is often more important than fancy advanced vocabulary. If you have an accent, that's fine. Pronunciation is usually something that is expected to be improved, particularly in Australia, um, as well as listening skills, because when you are in a workplace and conversations happen at rapid speed, particularly in Australia, it's really important that you're able to keep up with the conversations with clients, with customers, with workmates. So I would say that pronunciation and listening skills are two of the most um, important skills that people should master. But I think that in terms of what people should, your question was, how would people understand what to improve? I think that's really self-reflection and understanding their own educational needs. If they are struggling with understanding what they need to improve, they need to seek an English teacher's support. But they also need to understand that you don't need perfect English to work in Australia. You do need communication skills. You do need to continuously, improve even when you get a professional job. But you don't need advanced vocabulary. You don't need perfect grammar. You need to stop at some point and have the confidence to actually apply for the job and not use it as an excuse not to move forward in your career in a new country.
Yeah, good answer. I'd sort of say the same about writing in a way as well. Of course, like editors are pretty unforgiving about accuracy issues, but there's a lot of help that writers
Yeah.
can get with that. And it's more about whether the writing is effective or not. And I think with speaking, it's about, whether communication is
Yeah.
effective or
Yeah,
not.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
what you said about uh, identifying the areas to improve, I think that can be difficult because that's something which we're not taught at school. We're not taught to like
Yeah.
self-reflect and say, "Hey, my pronunciation's not as good as it could be." We're
Yeah.
used to a teacher saying you get 90 out of 100, or 50 out of 70 or
Mhm.
whatever. So definitely seek professional help on either of those fronts if you need a diagnosis and help identifying what to improve. But you certainly can do it yourself once you know a bit more about that, and it's important to do. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about more about work culture. How would you say Australian work culture is different from other work cultures, maybe in migrants' home countries?
Mhm. Well, yeah, I guess it depends on where they come from. There's lots of differences in different countries. Um, but some of the surprises that a lot of my community have had, um, I think Australia has the stereotype of being like super relaxed. People walk around in flip flops. People use say "good day, mate" and things like that. And although it is more relaxed than some countries, for example, Japan, South Korea, the USA, um, it is quite traditional as well. So, as an example, a lot of my Brazilian or Spanish speaking clients, they were always a bit surprised that you wouldn't, hug or give kisses on cheeks on a morning. It would just be like morning and then straight down. You wouldn't have a chit chat. Before you start work, it's actually quite, a bit unfriendly sometimes on a morning at work, depending on where you work, because everyone's just like tired and getting straight into the zone. Um, and people aren't necessarily friends outside of work as well. You maybe have one or two friends, but in the same cultures in Brazil and Spanish speaking countries, if you had a party, you'd invite your whole work, but not in Australia. You would usually often you would have maybe one or two close friends, and then the rest of the people would just be work colleagues that you're friendly to at work. You're not rude to them, but you're not necessarily going to invite them to your wedding. Yeah, it's not the same friendly terms as it is in different countries. Um, then, on the other hand, some countries, for example, Japan, South Korea, China, um, the work hours, the work life balance, obviously, working very long hours, the work life balance is less than Australia. And there's a really large hierarchy, so you've got your boss. You probably wouldn't. You'd be a bit too scared to speak to, and then it goes further down to the small people on the bottom. Small people on the bottom. Excuse that. But in Australia, generally, there's an open door policy in a lot of places. You might have a director who would sit out in the office with you, or the door would be open and you can go in and ask questions, or you could email them. You wouldn't say sir or madam. You would have first name basis even with directors. So it is kind of friendly and a little bit more laid back, like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the sort of separation of work and home life is quite important in a lot of English speaking countries. The idea of 9 to 5 is like 5 p.m. There's an
Mm,
off switch, and you can travel somewhere else and not
yeah.
have a bunch of work. Just when you were saying, and they invite their whole work team, I was thinking, oh my god, people would be cringing into their into their desks in the UK, like worst nightmare scenarios. You go to the pub and everyone there is from work. Um, yeah, interesting though, and like what you said about the open door policy and not seeing a sort of difference in state between different levels of employees. I mean,
Mm,
obviously there is a power difference and a difference of importance in the work situation, but as a person,
yeah.
uh, I think not. I used to teaching university in Mexico, and the students were always so deferential and sort of wanted you to be professorly. And I was like, I'm just a teacher, I'm an adult, you're an adult. It's the same with the same level of life force.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But that wasn't really the case there, that they had quite strict differences. A professor was expected to act a certain way and to be
Yeah.
quite standoffish with students and say, "Oh,
Yeah.
please call me sir." I was like, "It's not me," but yeah. Also, they didn't like the fact that I had long hair. That was a bone of contention. Right. Anyway, back to migrants. How can they see this? Is something I'm really interested in because I want my clients and writers to feel empowered rather than at a disadvantage for using English as a second language. How can migrants see their background as a strength rather than a
Good
weakness?
question. Um, a good question. The internet. It's 7 o'clock in Australia. This is why this is happening. It's chaos time.
Ice
But
cream time.
I've bribed her with ice cream, so she's not going to scream. Is that right? That's a good question. Um, and it's not an easy answer, and it's not something that happens overnight. It's actually, building confidence gradually. So, in my experience, when people come to a new country, they may be working in their survival job for a bit longer than they hoped, and they are not in their professional career. So they generally lose a little bit of their professional identity. They start to
Mm,
feel that they're not using their skills. They've got the language barrier. They think that the English speaker is better than them at their job, and it's none of it's true. But it is. But but none of it's true. And as that happens, as that continues, the longer it goes on, obviously confidence decreases. A lot of my clients have said that, when they first came to Australia, they felt really confident, really empowered, really excited. But then over time, when they weren't working in their fields, they lost confidence, and they're just, they are not in the confidence or the mindset space that they were before they came here. So to see what they have as a superpower, I don't want to simplify it, because sometimes you possibly need professional help, right? Let's be honest. You've gone through a life-changing situation. You may need the support of a counselor or a psychologist, and there's nothing wrong with that. In Australia, mental health is not as stigmatized as in some countries, even the
mm,
UK, in my experience. So, seeking support is absolutely fine. And I work with some psychologists to do workshops for my clients because I recognize how essential it is. So I don't want to simplify how to see your skills as a superpower, because I can give you the strategies, but it might take more than that. If it doesn't work for you, it's not you. It's what I'm trying to say. If the strategies doesn't work for you, it's not you. It's that you've been through a really hard situation, and you might need a little bit of support to get out the other side of it. But generally, what I would suggest is that you need to take a really close look at the skills that you have. So, transferable skills, your soft skills, your hard skills, your strengths, your characteristics. And I would even do a mind map. So, there is a program called Miro. So, Miro. It's a free online tool, and you can just pop your name or whatever in the middle, and then just start thinking about all of the skills that you have with examples as well. So don't just say, I'm good at communication. Give yourself an example. When have you used your communication skills? In Australia or in your home country? Think of the achievements that you've done as well. Okay, so really start to think about what you've done in your past, and then ask yourself evidence about why you can't do it now. So if you had really good organization skill or event management skills in your home country, you can still do that in your new country. You absolutely still can do that. And you need to start to think that you can do it. Um, I give my clients something called a brag book. So a brag is, you know, telling someone that you're good at something. So a brag book is an opportunity for you to list everything. So list down compliments, list down achievements, list difficult conversations in English, list people saying you did a good job, list feedback from an email. So list all of the good things that you're doing in Australia, or anywhere you are, and so that you are able to look back on that and be like, oh wow, I did a really good job then. Oh, that person said that my email writing was really good. Maybe my emails are better than I think. So start to look for the evidence that shows that you are good at your job still in Australia. And then I don't think, to be completely honest, I'm not sure I'm the right person. I think this person, the person who needs to answer this, is someone who's overcome this and is actually using their background as a superpower. And I have a client who is doing that. And she has done all of that. She has done the skill searches. She has done the brag book. She has been through really difficult and challenging times, but she has had the resilience and the mindset and got professional help to come out the other side of it. She did not give up because there are going to be challenges. No one said it was going to be easy. But then once she was out the other side of it, she started to self-reflect on everything. Self-reflect on the bad things, self-reflect on the good things. And then she started to understand more about who she was, what she could do, and she saw that she could help more people. So I've gone on a tangent, but it's not an easy thing to answer. And the best people, in my experience, is to ask the people who've actually been through this. I can give you strategies, but until you've actually overcome it, it's just activity, right? You don't believe it until
Yeah, of
you've done
course. I
it.
mean, it's going to be different for different people, and it's another benefit being in a community with other migrants or other similarly
Yeah.
minded or people from a similar situation. I
Hmm.
guess what I was driving at as well is DEI. Like, has there been a shift in thinking in English speaking countries that diversity is good?
No.
I'm hoping you're going to say
This
yes, but you never know.
there's still work to do. There is
Sure.
currently work being done in Australia to have a more inclusive hiring process. Um, I would say, probably from my knowledge, Australia is doing more work in this space than the UK, which is is not in my experience, and the US. I could be wrong. Um, there are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of government people who are talking about the need for, more diverse hiring practices for migrants, and even people with disability. So it's like the whole spectrum. Um, there's quite a large skills shortage in Australia, and there's work being done to give people opportunities in areas that need it. So that would be regional areas of Australia. So although is that is work being done in Australia is more inclusive, there are still sectors which are less likely to be hiring people from overseas, and they still have the stereotype that they don't know the language, therefore they don't know XYZ, and it's just not true. So there is still work that needs to be done, but it's the same in every single country. And in my experience, Australia is probably doing better than other countries in this. It's a big topic right now.
Yeah, good to hear there is some changes afoot. I guess it depends on educating people within companies as well, because it's all well and good hiring migrants, but if everyone in the company thinks like, "Oh, who's this person? They come from another place and they don't speak English properly," then that's
Yeah,
just as bad and is holding everyone back still. So it's
yeah.
a
Well,
work to be done on a lot of
that's
fronts.
yeah, that would be yeah, that's a whole campaign. In my experience, it would be the recruiters that need a little bit of a shift in mindset. Um, Generally, people in Australia, I mean, there are obviously some racist people. There are racist people everywhere. Um, but the vast majority of people are quite open, particularly if you're in like a city area. They are quite open and quite patient with people, especially if you're working in a profession. Like you're going to have English skills to get you by at work.
Yeah, good points. Right. Any more questions before we finish up? We'll probably just ask Natalie a couple more questions, and I'm not sure if we've got any questions yet in the chat. If you have any, let us know. If not, you can always ask us afterwards, and if you're watching this on replay, the same. Yes, we've talked about career strategies, moving abroad, DEI, and seeing your background as a strength so far. Um, Another question would be, well, let's just talk a little bit more about your work, Natalie. How does your work specifically help people adapt to Australia?
So I specifically work in career and communication, but even with communication, it's based on career advancement and building
Mhm.
workplace communication skills to better adapt to the workplace. Um, so I support from the interim from the beginning. I support people to get a professional job in Australia. So most of the time, the people I work with have been through, the challenging jobs of survival jobs, the migration troubles, and they're ready to find a professional job. So I support them with different strategy with that. So finding a strategy and finding out what's possible, resume writing their resume as well. And the way I do that is I actually do it with them because, in my experience, in my opinion, um, there's very little point in being given this document, but then not knowing what to do with it. So it's really important that I do the job search training and understanding why I'm doing it so that if they need to edit it in the future, then they can do that. And also
Mhm.
communication skills for interviews as well. I also have, a few different programs for communication in the workplace. So kind of the full spectrum. So getting them the job, helping them with the workplace communication, and I'm working on a program um, which will be English for better jobs. So it's the people. There's a lot of people out there who want their job, but they haven't got the confidence or the English skills. They think to
Mhm.
get it yet. So I'm working on something for them. So it will be like a rainbow of help of that. And yeah, I'm working on a lot more self-paced things, simply because obviously if people are looking for jobs, they're sometimes financially they're not able to afford private consultation. So there's a lot of things happening that will help people, yeah, in the whole part of their career. I won't be long, Bob.
Yeah. Have you noticed a change in the way that people are consuming learning materials? Your clients? I mean, I'm just asking out of interest. I think now, with so many pressures on our time,
Um,
have you noticed a change there? People,
yes, I'm noticing.
wanting
Uh,
like shorter content is what I mean.
Not necessarily shorter. I think people are looking for a quick fix, but unfortunately, a quick fix doesn't always exist with anything related to career and communication. Um, I think micro learning is really important because people are busy and they want to like fit videos in their short times. However, and this is my this is my this is what I've noticed is that people still need the motivation. People still need the accountability. People still need the support. So it's like a combination of micro learning with a support and accountability network. But yeah, I don't know. Everything's changing, I think. So
Everything is
yeah.
changing so fast. It's exhausting to keep up, but what else can we do? We've got to try. Before we wrap up, Natalie, where can people find you online?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram at Jobspeak Academy. In fact, everything is Jobspeak Academy on YouTube, and you can check out my website at jobspeakacademy.com. My
Great.
daughter's lost it. I need to go.
Nice and easy. All right, I'll put all those details in the comments or the description of these videos. You can find them on replay.
Yeah,
I'll let you get off, Natalie. Thanks so much for joining us. And as I said
thank
to
you.
our viewers, if you've got a question, just reach out to Natalie at Jobspeak Academy or to myself.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, send me a message or comment on here, and then I'll do my best to answer. If you're in Australia, yeah, come and check out Instagram.
Thanks so much for
Ready?
joining us, Natalie, and
Bye.
have a great rest of your day.
Evening.